Okay, good morning. We overcame our small audio-visual challenges this morning, so my apologies when I look over my shoulder as we've gone to Plan B. So as introduced, my name's Mark. I run global business development for IoT and a bunch of other very fun things at Amazon Web Services. And I want to spend sort of the next, let's say, 20 minutes or so, 24 minutes or so, talking a little bit about what we're doing in the area of IoT, a bit of our approach, what we're seeing in particular with our customers, and hopefully give you some ideas for your own IoT projects and some ideas of what we're doing. I always like to start with a really important phrase. And that's the fact that no one buys IoT. IoT is a really, really tough term. It means sort of everything and nothing all at once. If you have a haircut like mine and you've been in technology for a while, some of the concepts are not new. It was called machine to machine before, connecting one thing to another thing to collect data and for command and control, not a new concept in the slightest. What definitely has changed is that the barrier to entry has dropped. Technology has become somewhat commoditized. New technologies have brought a powerful new set of tools. But at the end of the day, from our perspective, when we're talking to our customers, people are looking to buy IoT. That's kind of like asking if I said, would you like some web? You wouldn't ask somebody, would you like mobile? No, it's too broad a term. IoT means home automation to some people, it means Industry 4.0 solutions to others. At the end of the day, what we find is that people are trying to solve problems. So the way we like to kick off our presentations is, and what we really like to do is kick off our presentations by the slides changing. And that'll be my cue to the gentleman at the back to maybe flip the slides. There we go. Is that we come at it from a value perspective. Basically this concept of, if you knew the state of everything and you had unlimited compute capability to reason on top of that data, what problems would you solve? This is an important perspective. At Amazon, one of our core values is customer obsession. And everything that we do, we like to start at the customer's perspective and work back from there. And when we're talking to customers, they are trying to solve problems. They're not interested in connecting one device to another. They're not interested in which protocol you're using to talk to which radio technology and so forth. They're trying to solve business problems. And I'll give you an example of a customer that we're working with to do that, and that's Philips Healthcare. So for Philips, they are moving their Philips Healthcare cloud from an on-premise infrastructure into the cloud, which has been amazing to work with them on that. But more importantly, they're thinking about ways to transform personal healthcare. So when we sit with Philips and we talk to them at our quarterly briefings with them, we're talking about the journey to solving that problem of transforming personal healthcare. Yes, at the same time, we happen to be using a number of our IoT specific services to help them connect both personal and more harder core medical equipment to the cloud to ingest data, to do diagnostics. But at the end of the day, it's about this concept of transforming personal healthcare. They're doing some very amazing things. Healthcare is a tough space for IoT. It's highly regulated, a lot of data sovereignty and privacy issues, obviously. And we're working really closely with them to understand the ins and outs of building really high-scale IoT solutions. But they are helping us. Actually, Philips is one of the customers that is most directly impacting our product roadmap, something we work with very collaboratively with customers on any of the AWS services. Moving forward, we see these solutions, though, coming in all shapes and sizes across all industries. So if you spend any time thinking about IoT at all, a lot of these things will not come as any surprise. But again, people are not looking, there are no RFPs for IoT. There might be RFPs out for IoT tooling, but it's always to solve a problem. Problems like building new services, thinking about smart buildings or predictive maintenance or fleet management. or energy management, or industrial control, and so on. The list is actually quite large, and it actually hits almost every customer that we've talked to has an interest in solving problems using IoT-based solutions, absolutely. It's also about the data, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. But simply connecting devices doesn't solve any of these problems either. It's what you do with the data and events you collect from those devices. It's about the analytics, the machine learning, the applications you build to actually do something useful to delight your customers at the end of the day. Just for a, we're going back and forth a little bit. Next slide, please. Just for a little bit of context on customer momentum from an AWS perspective, this is a sampling of some of the customers using our IoT-specific services. One thing to know about us, people have been using the cloud to build IoT solutions for quite some time, even before it was called IoT. So we have customers, depending on how you define what an IoT solution is, the list of customers would even be longer than this. But some of our customers using our very specific services. I talked about Philips, and I'll talk about some of the others like Enel and iRobot in a moment. But there's something unique about AWS that I think gives us an interesting perspective in this market, maybe more so than other technology providers. Obviously, we start with our external customers and all of their input and what they're trying to solve for. But we have this little thing, this little playground in our backyard, and it's called the rest of Amazon. So Amazon knows a thing or two about running highly complex systems. We know a thing or two about giant facilities, about supply chain and logistics, about asset tracking, about energy management, about robotics, and so forth. And we're able to actually go to our cousins and the rest of Amazon and ask their perspective. They're a customer of ours as well. They give us very interesting, obviously it's in the family perspective on what they're doing. So it's a very unique opportunity to be able to walk across the hall and talk to the people who run one of the most complex logistical operations on the planet and say, hey, would you use any of our stuff? And do you have any feedback about that? And have that as an in-the-family conversation. Plus, they're innovating at an incredible pace. If you don't know what this is, these are the Amazon Robotics units that are in our 8th generation fulfillment centers. So this is how anybody bought anything from Amazon? Show of hands. On behalf of Amazon, thank you. Thought there'd be more hands over this side. I'll have to help you with that later on. Amazon.com, great selection. So when you order something, the robots, we use this technique. It almost seems random how we distribute the actual products through these shelving units. But it's the robots that actually lift these shelving units and bring it to the workers in the fulfillment center. So the people don't go to the stuff comes to the people. It's a lot easier on the people, and it keeps the people really happy. But it allows us to do interesting things like we don't turn the lights on in parts of the fulfillment center. Robots don't really care if the lights are on and off, that they're not using the lights as an example. These are highly complex systems, and so we work with the Amazon Robotics team about how they leverage the cloud to make the robots run. And that gives us a really interesting perspective and I think a bit of a unique advantage. So, you asked, the title of the slide of the deck was if you knew the state of everything. Well, how can you know the state of everything? So let me just give you a taste of some of the technology that we're putting in play to help our customers build these kinds of solutions. And we think of it in sort of 3 pillars. And if you think about how you build out these solutions, you can kind of divide up the technology and the work effort into these 3 categories, in our opinion. In fact, we're going to co-opt the word IoT a little bit. We're going to talk about intelligence and orchestration and things. I'm going to work backwards. So first you have the things, those physical objects that you obviously are sensing and acting out in the real world. They're an important part of the equation here. Then you have the cloud. The cloud is the orchestration level, the data that you ingest and you store and you want to do something with. You need a place to have that unlimited capacity to store that data and an unlimited computing capability to do something with that data. And that is orchestrated with the cloud. We do firmly believe that that is the ideal way to collect data and manipulate that data for our customers. But on top of that data, you need to apply a level of intelligence. You need to be able to apply insights and logic to drive some kind of action at the end of the day. And so what we've started with is a service in the cloud called AWS IoT. This service is essentially the front door for a device to connect to the cloud. The challenge for connecting devices is pretty simple. You need to do it securely. You need to do it at scale. It needs to be as simple as possible for the end developer. And this service provides all of those capabilities. It has a messaging broker. It has certificate-based security. It has a high-power rules engine to deal with data. It has something called device shadows to help developers build companion apps and understand the state of devices. But more importantly, it routes data to the rest of AWS to help enable any application that you've built. So that's another way to sort of view this service. We launched this service about 2 years ago. A couple of important points. We take a very neutral stance on things like protocols and chipsets and operating systems. We think the important thing is to bring the right tool to the job for the right purpose. And so our SDKs are built and open source so that they can be used across platforms. We don't believe in making any one operating system sort of the ultimate jack of all trades tool for IoT solutions, because it really doesn't work that way. And so we actually have built very powerful partnerships with the silicon vendors like Intel and Qualcomm, with operating system providers like the various flavors of Linux, and even communication providers like the operators like AT&T and so forth. And that gives our customers a really wide range of options when they're building solutions. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. This service has been great, and a lot of those customers on the slide are the ones using this service. But there's a challenge. As powerful as the cloud is, let me show you some customers first. So first there's Enel. So they're building the next generation of smart meters. Enel is one of the largest energy and utility providers in the world, particularly in Europe. So they're working with us to build a next generation of smart meters, all built on AWS and using our IoT stack. And then iRobot. Anybody have a Roomba? Show of hands. Anybody got a Roomba? Don't be shy. If you have a Roomba, let's see those hands. You're using our IoT stack. As of 3 days ago, all iRobot devices are powered by AWS IoT. Started with the first generation, and now they all are. As a public service announcement, if you also have an Echo, iRobot just released an amazing Alexa skill, so you can control that robot by voice. So one of our great sort of device maker examples. But there is a challenge, and the challenge has come in the form of feedback from our customers about the reality of IoT solutions. And we've divided that feedback essentially into 3 laws. And the 3 laws are very straightforward, and in a way have sort of evolved our thinking as a cloud provider in how we build our solutions going forward. So what are the 3 laws? The first set of feedback came to us in the law as the law of physics. So despite Jeff Bezos' best efforts, Amazon has yet not been able to change the speed of light. We're working on it. It's a tough problem. The challenge here is that in many scenarios, IoT, in many IoT solutions, you're dealing with physical objects. They are very close to the problem they are trying to solve. And some of those problems, any amount of latency for those problems is too much latency. You could have the best connection to the internet money can buy, and it is still too long. Think about the anti-lock brakes in your car. Any delay is too much delay. The safety systems in a manufacturing plant or on a locomotive and so forth. The other reality in the law of physics is that no amount of code, you could be the best developer in the world, no amount of code will fix a broken connection. That is a law of physics at work. The second is the law of economics. The law of economics says data has weight. What do I mean by that? Many industrial solutions in particular generate massive amounts of data. Some of that data you need in the moment. Some of that data you need to manipulate. Some of that data is simply too much to move into the cloud, even if you wanted to at that moment in time. We've done a lot of work. We have a product called Snowball to help customers move massive amounts of data into AWS. In fact, one of our customers that's doing autonomous driving testing was telling us, look, when we send an autonomous vehicle around the track, it takes hours just to download the data from the car over Wi-Fi, let alone anywhere else. And so sometimes you have to be closer to the source to do things. And the last is the law of the land. The law of the land is pretty straightforward. Privacy, regulation, data sovereignty. Sometimes you're just not allowed to do something you want to do even if you wanted to. And so we've taken that feedback and essentially wrapped it into a new service that is going to extend, literally extend AWS out to devices on the edge. We think that the future IT infrastructure for our customers is not servers, it's this amazing array of different devices with different sets of capabilities. What our customers tell us though is they want the same environment that they're using in AWS that they would use on these edge services. So we announced something called Greengrass. Greengrass is essentially software that you load on compatible hardware. We're working right now on building a broad compatibility list, but essentially think x86 and ARM support with a minimum footprint of about a gigahertz processor and 128 megs of memory. So think Raspberry Pi level hardware is the minimum, but no maximum. And we've taken our IoT service and our serverless compute platform called Lambda and put it inside Greengrass. Greengrass, is essentially a container that runs on a general purpose operating system and extends the same capabilities you have in the cloud out to a device. And this is a powerful way that allows people to still leverage those edge devices in a very local, low latency way with the same technologies that they're using in the cloud, bringing AWS to the edge. So Greengrass gives you local Lambda, local device broker, local security, and local device shadows, all of the same technology from our IoT stack. And Greengrass is unique because not only do Greengrass devices speak to another, but they also are essentially a broker for what stays at the edge and what moves back to the main AWS cloud overall. And that's something that's controlled by the developer and is very situational depending on what you want to do. Let me give you an example. We're working with a large resources company with our partner Intel. They've taken their heavy equipment, they've put Intel gateways powered by Greengrass onto those devices. They've wired through sensors to understand the health of that equipment. This is out in the middle of nowhere, these mines. They have very low bandwidth internet connections. So these devices need to be powerful enough to be essentially semi-autonomous and working without a connection to the internet. And Greengrass essentially brings the cloud to those devices despite the harsh conditions that the equipment works in. But our IoT stack doesn't stop there. I mentioned it's all about data. So when you think about what we're doing in IoT, the one thing I like to tell people is AWS's platform for IoT is all of AWS. You got to connect a device, you got to ingest data, you have to store that data. You want to build applications, you want to have machine learning, you want to have big data and analytics, you need databases, you need voice services, so on and so on and so on. I've just described about 3/4 of AWS's platform right off the bat. So whether you're doing analytics, AI services, or applications, just a few of the examples of the services we provide to IoT developers to round out those solutions from end to end. But solving these problems is not something that we go alone. So if you meet a vendor who says that they are your one-stop shop, they're going to deliver you everything you need for IoT, they're probably being a bit naive in that statement. We believe that building solutions for our customers requires really, really good friends. And we've assembled a group of friends in an ecosystem around our IoT platform that ranges from the chip to the cloud. So I've already mentioned Intel and Qualcomm and our amazing silicon providers. I'll give you another example, something we did with Microchip Atmel. We built a crypto chip, a secure element, that allows off-the-shelf a device maker to buy a chip that is preloaded with the certificates to automatically connect to our IoT stack. That means if you're developing a product like what Norton did and Symantec, they rolled out the Norton Core router. They needed to get to market as quickly as possible. They were able to buy this secure element off the shelf, included in the bill of materials for the design of the device, and get up and running much faster than they would had they tried to engineer that themselves. We have software partners like C3 IoT. This is Tom Siebel's new company. C3 is an analytics and machine learning partner of ours. They focus in areas of predictive maintenance and energy management and asset management and fraud detection. They have a strong energy background in particular. They build the modules, the visualizations, the implementable applications for our customers on top of, they're a 100% AWS shop themselves, but they extend our IoT service. They use our IoT service to talk to devices. They take that data using a lot of AWS technology to create things like predictive maintenance solutions and applications for customers. We've done the same with Accenture, who have an entire practice built around our IoT stack for somebody who's looking for a very robust sort of practice from a company like Accenture to come in and help. We have a partnership with Salesforce. So Salesforce is launching their IoT cloud. Salesforce doesn't deal with devices. We deal with the devices. We've built a connector through to Salesforce. Salesforce has a lot of magic that happens in their IoT cloud, and we actually are going together to customers jointly to help solve problems that our mutual customers have. And then we have implementation partners. If you need help getting it done around the world, we have a whole range of systems integrators and implementation partners to help you out. So that's a fast pass through a lot of the things AWS is doing to help customers. But let me bring it back to Amazon. So I mentioned Amazon is a great source of information for us, but they're doing some pretty cool things as well. And I think another sort of unique perspective that we have on this market, both on the consumer side of IoT and on the industrial side of IoT, are some of the new experiences that Amazon is enabling our customers to experience. So the first is voice. Anybody have an Echo or an Alexa-powered device at home? Thank you, as always. So Alexa is an incredibly popular service for us. The Echo devices have been best-selling devices, and I think many consumers are discovering the power of voice as a new user interface. Today, if you build a skill for Alexa, so a skill is something that makes Alexa smarter. Hey Alexa, order me an Uber. That's a skill. Those skills are written in Lambda, which is AWS's serverless compute platform. And then there's Alexa Voice Services, which is an SDK that you can put into your device and bring Alexa to your device. An example of that is Ecobee, who just launched a new version of their smart home thermostat that has Alexa built in. So it's an Alexa device itself. We work hand in hand with the Alexa team. We have the very same customers and build not only the infrastructure to communicate with the device, but the ability to bring these powerful new voice experiences to devices as well. Then there's the retail side of Amazon, which is sort of an interesting angle for many of our IoT customers. There are consumables. We have this thing called Amazon Dash, started with the buttons. Anybody have a Dash button at home to reorder? We have one over here, I can't see super well. The Dash button is like the easiest way to reorder something. You run out of coffee, you run out of toilet paper, you run out of detergent, you push the button, it shows up on your doorstep a couple of days later. The buttons have become wildly popular. We have thousands of brands using these buttons now. And it is the simplest way to buy. Once you sort of describe one on my coffee machine, when the beans get a little low, push the button and it shows up. But now we're going into APIs. So we have devices that are going to have the connection through to Amazon built in. So that's a GE washer and dryer. So now you pour the detergent in, it's more efficient because the machine knows better than you how much soap to use. And then it knows when it's running out, it calls for help and reorders. So we have many customers that are interested in this kind of replenishment, but again, they didn't have the cloud infrastructure to communicate with the device. So we help build that cloud infrastructure out to the device, and our friends at the Dash team help with that replenishment, which again is a different kind of buying experience for the customer. And that sort of brings me to the end of my journey as we sort of wind up our time here. And one of the unique things about Amazon is we take a lot of our inventions that we use internally in a lot of ways, and we turn it into services and we give it to our customers. We do this all the time. AWS itself was born out of an expertise of running giant systems that we've turned into the world's leading cloud provider. Our Amazon Machine Learning service is born of machine learning expertise that Amazon Retail was doing that now you can use in your own applications. Even Alexa, we've taken the guts of Alexa and created two new services, Lex and Polly, to build your own AI and voice applications. So you remember those dash buttons I showed you? Well, people started hacking on them. And this is sort of my last thing. Most IoT is incredibly complex, and I'm going to end on the most simple example possible, and it's kind of my fun example to wrap up. So people took our dash buttons and they started hacking them. It's a basic Wi-Fi button. It's pretty straightforward. And we had developers saying, hey, could we have these buttons instead of us tearing them apart? We're not really supposed to do that. Could we have the buttons? So 2 years ago at our reInvent conference, we created an IoT button. So this is a genericized version of that Wi-Fi button, and it's pre-wired to our IoT service. And then developers started going crazy. Push a button, order an Uber. Push a button, order flowers. Push a button, start a conference call. Push a button, get a conference room. There were millions of examples of people doing things. And then enterprises started saying to us, could we have like 10 or 20 of those? Because we have an idea for something that we want to do. And then we started getting requests, could we have a few hundred of those? So we've actually created a way that you can actually buy them in bulk. If you want a button, you can buy them on Amazon.com today if you want a button just for yourself. And why would customers want to do this? Well, let me give you an example. This is what we did with Miller Coors. So they wanted to create innovative customer loyalty experience. So they took our buttons. We labeled them for them. They had their marketing agency. They literally did glue those tap handles onto the button. So you actually pull the tap instead of push the button. You pull the tap. And when you pull the tap, their partner Drizzly brings you beer. You pick your favorite beer from Miller Coors, and it arrives on your doorstep when you run out of beer. So they use this as part of a marketing campaign. They didn't want to have to go design that hardware, and we were happy to take something that we had already created and offer it to them for their own purposes. So sometimes these connected experiences can be as simple as a click of a button. If you're a developer, it's also the easiest way to sort of prototype and test solutions wired through to our IoT stack. The buttons basically do three things: click, double click, and triple click. It's very advanced stuff. But with those three things, it's pretty amazing what developers are able to do. So thank you very much for the time. I want to thank Ty for inviting me. As you think about your IoT solutions, just remember, they're pretty varied. You need a group of friends who know what they're doing. You need a strong platform to handle that scale and security. And sometimes the solutions can start with something as simple as a proof of concept with an easy device. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. I appreciate the time.